Hey everyone, we are back. It is H10 Hanshin Tigers English News, and I am the original host of the podcast. But my man right over here, Sanjay, has been with me faithfully for a good long time. It is great to talk to you again, Sanjay, as it always is.
I'm just riding on your coattails, so I'm just happy to be here.
Well, it's great to have someone on those coattails because it gets kind of lonely doing the pod or doing any of this stuff alone. I don't know if you remember this. Maybe you were a listener or maybe you weren't, but back in, I guess it would be 2017, I did the show for a whole year basically on my own.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think
And
that's before my time.
okay, well, you're better off not going back and listening to many of those. I mean, I did have a couple of interviews with players like Matt Merton that might be worth going back to, but on the whole, it's so much better to have you along. So appreciate it, man.
Happy to be here.
Well, so as we touched on a little bit as we recorded 149, the audio, we have got some issues with our catcher, Mr. Umeno, who has hit into 10 double plays on the year, which is a crazy pace. I believe the record for double plays in a season is, I think I read somewhere it was 31, but I thought I'd done some research that it was 34. Anyways, he was at one point on pace for 38.
Wow.
Yeah. And his batting average now, don't look now, but it is a 165. And I think his on base percentage is like 209 or something crazy like that. Like, what happened? I thought he was supposed to be a hitting catcher. And I remember, man, even in 2018 and 2019, when he was winning the Golden Glove, he was also like, yeah, but I think I want to do more with the bat. And I want to reach double digits and home runs and all this stuff. He actually seemed to have that potential. And now I think he's just lost it, man, as a hitter. He is completely lost up there. Don't you think?
No, I agree. He looks so uncomfortable, so uncertain, unsure, uh, hesitant, and then doing all the wrong things and swinging at the wrong pitch and doing the exact thing that you don't want to do.
He seems
It's
to be
almost
getting.
hard to hit into as many double plays as he has if you tried.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I don't know how many at bats. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but how many times did he come up to the plate with the possibility of a double play?
Yeah, that's a good
Because,
point.
10 double plays is spectacularly bad.
Mhm.
But in the number of opportunities, I mean, we're talking maybe close to 50%,
Yeah, I
literally.
think you may be right.
It's pretty darn close. So the problem there is the guy behind him in the pecking order, Sakamoto, is not much better. I believe his batting average right now is 179, and his slugging and his on base are not much better than Umeno's. So I think between the two of them, if you add their OPSs together, they're somewhere around 900. That's not cool.
Ouch. That's not
Yeah.
cool.
So I get it. I mean, like we said on the show, 18 straight games of 3 runs against or fewer is unbelievable. And you got to give the catchers at least some of the credit for that. I know the pitchers are doing well, but the catchers are the one calling the game. And those
Sure.
would be, of course, Umeno and Sakamoto. So props to them for that. But we got
Yep.
to do something. And we read an article. I think you shared it with me, and then I read it and we talked about it a bit. Basically, we're talking about, 7 batters in the lineup because
Yeah,
Umeno and
exactly.
Sakamoto are not much better than the pitchers.
In fact, they could be worse, arguably.
Yeah, depending on the pitcher, of course.
Yeah.
Like I know that they were saying that between the two of them, this is about a week ago, and I don't think the situation's changed. They had one RBI hit, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Umeno, I think had another RBI on a grounder, and then he had one on a sac fly this past
Back
week, and he
fly.
had a home run. But and Sakamoto has a home run maybe as well. But
Hmm.
as far as the RBI hits, they only had one between the two of them. And if you think about the pitching staff, I know for sure that there's a couple of pitchers that have gotten RBI hits.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
yeah, so it's pretty sad. So what I'm wondering, man, is it was an interesting choice that our friend Haraguchi made at the start of the season or in the off season to give up on trying to be a catcher anymore. I'm going to start things afresh and I'm going to be a regular fielder, whether that's infielder or outfielder remains to be seen, is what he had said at the time. He's kind of settled in. It looks like he is aiming to be a third baseman slash first baseman. And he has
Hmm.
seen some top squad time at first, committed an error, and I think made a couple of mistakes that didn't count as errors in this past game. At least that's what I saw from someone else's Twitter feed. But I'm not saying he doesn't belong at first base, but what I am saying is this. Do you think you could consider going back behind the mask, Haraguchi-san? Because we need some offense out of that position. And I just kind of feel like maybe now is the time for him to get some reps in and give that a go. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I think that he's already given Yano a lot of flexibility in using his second catcher, whoever's not starting in a game, because you know that they like to just not use that second catcher in case in case the starter gets hurt. But lately I've seen the double switch where they flip the catcher and the pitcher or whatever in whatever order. So having Haraguchi on the top squad is already yielding net positive results in my mind. But to your point, yes, Yano, do it. Get Gucci behind the plate and see what happens, because it can't be any worse than what's going on right now.
So I can't help but wonder, like, okay, there may be games where it's a real defensive struggle, and we've talked about this on the show. I think every baseball fan talks about this. There's going to be some low scoring games, and I wouldn't necessarily say, okay, well, we need to plug Haraguchi into those necessarily. Well, you could, but then you could argue that if he's behind the dish, maybe the game call isn't as good. Maybe the opponents get to run a little bit more, whatever. I would say maybe you put him in against a team that doesn't run so frequently, and maybe that is a little bit easier to figure out if there is such a thing. I think there might be.
Yep.
And then, you get his bat in against some of these pitchers that he may have an advantage on. I mean, clearly, I'm not spending, hours and hours poring over the data on Haraguchi and who he is strong against as far as other teams' pitchers, but he's got enough experience that they could look at that and say, look, he's really good against this pitcher or this type of pitcher. Why don't we plug him in as a starting catcher on these days? And it doesn't even have to be a regular, like once a week or whatever. But I think they need to start finding ways to even like just light that fire under Umeno and Sakamoto and say, look, there is somebody else in town. You know what I mean? And you got to start getting your act together, or else you're going to lose some of your playing time. Nobody, including Umeno and Sakamoto, wants someone else to infringe on what they've got going right now. And Umeno came back as a free agent, hoping to become the Sei Hoshu, right? Like the full-time catcher. Hasn't fully happened because Sakamoto has gotten, I think it's Nishi and maybe one other starter as his kind of assignments. But if you bring Haraguchi in and say, look, like we're bringing this guy in and we're taking away some of your guys' playing time because you're not producing, well, that may not necessarily force or, make them produce more, but certainly it will give them a little bit more of a sense of urgency to work on that part of their games more.
Yeah. And, Haraguchi, we don't know what he's thinking, but if it gets him on the playing field and gets him at bats, then I don't think he would be all that against the idea.
No, there's no way that guy is sitting on the bench going, you know what? I'm pretty happy with my role right now. He can't be. I mean, this is a guy that he has shown so much potential. He's a 2-time all-star, for crying out loud, which, I think Umeno is probably about the same. I think he's maybe got 2 under his belt. But maybe more.
Yeah.
Right? Like no 2-time all-star is going, you know what? It's okay if you just use me occasionally as a pinch hitter and maybe defensive replacement at first base. No way. He wants to be in there way more. And I mean, if you have read his book, which I don't think you have, right?
I don't think I have.
Okay.
I need to get that.
Yeah, it's a good one. But I mean, this is a guy that is just hungry to play, hungry to learn, hungry to get better. And I really think like he's 30 years old, 31, 30. He's 30. He's a year younger than Umeno and a year older than Sakamoto. So he fits right in the age bracket. He could still compete, especially as we said, just given the way things are going. So that's what we've got for you all today. I would love to hear what you think about the catcher situation. We've got to find this balance between the game calling, which is going so well, and the offense, which, let's take away the last 2 days, really isn't going well at all. So give us some thoughts in the comments, and we will definitely, banter back and forth about what you've got to say. I respect anybody's opinion, whether it is the same as mine or not. So don't be afraid to disagree with me or even call me an idiot. I've been called way worse. Fortunately, not by you, Sanjay. I appreciate you, and your kind words to me. But thanks again for joining for this show.
Thank you for having me. It's always fun.
I don't need to remind all of y'all to subscribe and all that good stuff. But if you could, we would love to reach the 1,000 subscriber mark, which we're about 70 off of right now. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you have not already done so. Let's go Tigers, and we'll catch you next time on H10.
And tell your friends to subscribe. Aloha.